everyone, this is Lamar Neagle, and you're watching Rave Green TV.
So Lamar, to get started in today's video, let's do some quick fire questions for people maybe to break the ice a little bit, get to know you a little bit more, and just, if they don't already know you from the great career you've had with the Sounders, just to, get to know the true self of what you're all about. And so to get started with the first question, it is Xbox or PlayStation?
It's gotta be Xbox.
Messi or Ronaldo?
Messi.
Favorite music artist?
That's tough. It changes from month to month. I think I'm back on Chance the Rapper right now.
Was he part of your pregame music that you listened to?
Yeah, around 2016, 17. Yeah, I listened to a lot of T.I., that kind of music. So it would say trap music, kind of heading to the stadium, getting in the mindset that I was going into war. And then it kind of petered out. As I had kids, I stopped kind of listening to that stuff and got into some easier stuff.
Mbappe or Haaland?
Haaland right now. Yeah, that actually surprises me. I mean, what he's been able to do in the first year in the Prem is, unprecedented.
The best player that you've played with?
Best player that I've played with? These questions are always tough because positionally it's different. But I mean, the most efficient guy I saw on the field was Obafemi Martins.
Toughest opponent you've gone up against?
Probably Chad Marshall. Having to play against him on different teams, but then when he came to the Sounders, then play against him in training every single day was difficult as well. Just another guy that was unbelievable.
Who was your footballing idol when you were growing up?
I had two. Originally, it was Thierry Henry at Arsenal, and then Didier Drogba at Chelsea. So I ended up being a Chelsea fan in the long run. Started with Arsenal and then moved to Chelsea as Didier came in. And then I got to play against both of them, which was pretty cool.
So now let's transition about talking about your time with the Sounders. You were signed on 4 separate occasions for the Sounders back in 2009, 2011, 2013, and 2017. I mean, this story is probably the most different story from any Sounders player in the club's history. For you, as a player that left, came back, what was your time like playing for the Sounders? And then to add on to it, as you've played for many different clubs, what sets the Sounders apart from any other team that you played for in MLS or just in general from all the other MLS teams?
Yeah, so to start, just commenting on the career path. Each time I came to the Sounders and left the Sounders, there were different circumstances. For a kid that, grew up in Federal Way and was a ball boy for the Sounders, each time I couldn't be upset with being able to come home and play in front of my, friends and family and come back to a place like Seattle, as your second question kind of alluded to, MLS team that was kind of setting the standard. It was always a joyous time to be coming back. It was never kind of against my will, which happens a lot in the MLS for guys. I think it is very unconventional, the path that I took, even through club and college. I wasn't recruited. I was a walk-on at a D1 school, and then I wasn't in the draft. Brian Schmetzer ended up giving me a call because I was in Vegas, and they were going to be doing preseason in Ventura, California. Wasn't that far away. He gave me a call and asked if I wanted to drive out from my college at UNLV down in Vegas to Ventura and train. So the path was always unconventional. Whenever people get asked about, their careers, it's the only one that you live. So it's the only one that you know. So I don't know any other way or what any other experience was, but I know that you don't hear many people that have a similar path as mine. But yeah, the first time I left, 2009 to 2010, the only 2 games I played in were the friendlies that everybody played. I needed to go somewhere and get some experience before jumping back onto a team like the Sounders, and I was able to do that. Ended up needing to go away and gain some experience. Did that Charleston, Finland, came back in 2011 to then start playing actually as a sub and a little bit more regularly. Had some success, had the hat trick against Columbus, started scoring some goals. So I thought, I'm a shoe-in. Next year, we'll be all good. Lo and behold, Montreal comes in. I go to Montreal, have a season there. Not too happy just with playing time and some other things. And so end up wanting to move from Montreal. They were a very good club that was kind of did right by me as I was a good professional there. So they ended up working something out with Seattle to bring me back here. And that's when I had my longest stint and most successful stint 13, 14, and 15. And then end of 15, I was thinking I wasn't getting the playing time that I deserved. I wanted kind of more. I was like 27 at the time. And so asked for a trade, and then went to DC. And on the return back, I kind of knew, I think my time was kind of coming up. I was getting a little exhausted from really playing professionally. I know it sounds weird, but that's just what happened. And I was able to come back and kind of finish my career in Seattle, which was awesome to be able to do. So each time was something very different. And I always had a great relationship with Adrian and Garth and Chris Henderson and Schmetzer and Ziggy. And so everything was set up front. And that was one thing that I really appreciated about the club. And that also leads to the second question that you had, the professionalism that was shown. A lot of times that isn't the case. A lot of times guys are just traded without any say. I had a say. In some of the cases, I had a say of where I was going and how that went about. But every single time they were really upfront with me. And so I appreciated that. To continue that, I mean, they started out right. In 2009, it was an amazing launch. On the field, it was amazing with, Fredy, Montero, Freddie Lundberg, Casey Keller, Brad, like all those guys played a huge role in how big that the Sounders became, because you only get one chance at a first impression. I think that 2009 was amazing. And then off the field, having the connection with the Seahawks really made everything transition smoothly for a professional team jumping into the MLS. And so that combination of the family-oriented, I think, kind of delivery and the culture around the game days really created just an amazing environment for the team to grow. Not to mention our Sonics left a few years before that, which left a hole in, I think, everybody's hearts and really made us appreciate in Seattle our sports teams. And so the Sounders were able to kind of fill a little bit of that.
You kind of spoke a little bit about it. So you say your best stint was around the third go around in 2013, 2014. You'd say was one of your best stints with the team. And in my opinion, and in many fans' opinions, in 2014 was arguably one of the, if not the greatest teams in Sounders history. And obviously I think you were a key part of that success for that team. And I want to ask you a little bit about that team, because what made that team just so perfect, I felt like, because regardless of the situation they were in, whoever they faced, they were down 5-0. I felt like that team, anybody from back to front could make a difference and could just change the game. Obviously, there was Clint and Oba, which was arguably one of the best duos in MLS history. But what made that team like so good?
Yeah, I think it was that confidence. When you have confidence like that, and you're absolutely right, we could go down in the first 5 minutes and nobody would bat an eye. It was like, we're going to get a goal. It's just a matter of who's going to get the goal. Which one of us is it going to be, and how many are we going to get? Even, it came down to the end of games and we'd still have that confidence. And I think that's the trust in each other, the culture around the team. It just culminated to that year, us being a powerhouse. I think that, it stemmed from the Obed and Clint, like having confidence in those guys that they could perform, and it really freed up a lot of people to be like, they're going to make something happen. Like, what else can I do to add on to this? And that was really my mentality, right? I was playing alongside these guys and just trying to put myself in good places. I was always a good finisher. And so I think that combination and me just trying to work as hard as possible, like I got to run for these two guys as well. And the way I stay on this field is being the guy with the most steps each and every week. And there was a confidence about us. I think you hit the nail on the head. It's that, like, regardless of what was happening in the game, we always knew that we could win and we could score at any moment. And then you have a back line like we had. There was kind of no stopping us, or at least we thought. I think 9 times out of 10 that team takes absolutely everything. Just so happened that year we didn't take it all.
Yeah, and then I like how well these are transitioning, but I do want to talk about that 2014 season, because I mean, you talked about how amazing Clint was, Oba was, yourself, Marco Papa, Chad Barrett, like everyone was chipping in just completely different angles. Gonzo Pineda, Ozzy Alonso. I mean, the team was so perfect. That team was like the pinnacle of all things for the Sounders, the perfect mixture of European players to MLS veterans. And it just seemed like this is the moment the Sounders were waiting for. They won the US Open Cup. They won the Supporter Shield. But then came, I think ever since the Sounders came into MLS in 2009, just the LA Galaxy. And I think the 4 biggest games in the history between the two teams happened in that 2014 season. I mean, how crazy is it that those two teams were the two teams that were in the we're fighting for a supporter shield spot, and somehow in the MLS fixtures, the last two matches were away and at home against the Galaxy, and those are going to be the two games to decide, almost like a knockout stage game, to decide who will win the supporter shield. And you chipped in with a goal in the first game to make the comeback. We obviously win the second one at home thanks to Marco Papa with 2 goals. But then came that playoff game where we unfortunately narrowly lost. Like you spoke about, 9 times out of 10, that team was going to be the first MLS team to win the treble. What was that experience like, playing those 4 games? Because you were a big part of all 4 of those games, in my opinion. And as I said, you chipped in with a goal in the first of those 4 games that were coming in such a short period of time. I think that all happened within a month and a half of playing the Galaxy 4 times, and probably some of the best MLS games in history. What was that like for you?
It's hard to write that up, right? Like battling for a supporter shield. You playing, when does a team play the exact same team twice at the end of a season? Whoever was writing that MLS headquarters hit the nail on the head, having us end like that. Those were tough games. They were a team that obviously was a rival of ours from the beginning, right when the Sounders entered the MLS. LA Galaxy, that was kind of the who's who. And then adding obviously Beckham and everything. But I remember that the second to last game, the 2-2, scoring the goal almost right after Clint in order to secure the tie. Then knowing that coming home, okay, this is where we need to make it right. And it was almost, that was right before playoffs. So that was a playoff. That was a home and away. And then the joy after the second game of Marco Papa coming on and absolutely killing it. His goal where he rounds the keeper, steals it from the keeper, and then scores, and then the celebration afterwards. I don't even remember who he played after that. I just remember the next LA Galaxy game, and that was one of the biggest games. But unfortunately, I didn't play in the first leg. I flew down to LA to play, and I don't think a lot of people know this. My wife ended up having a medical emergency while I was in LA, so I woke up the night before. I was on the phone with her, obviously worried all night while I was in LA, and woke up in the morning, went down for breakfast, and saw Schmetzer and told Schmetzer just what was going on, and was almost breaking down when I was talking to him. And he looked at me and he was like, "There's no way you can play in this game." He was like, "Go get on a flight." So I hopped on a flight and then flew home, and didn't even end up watching the game just because I was with my wife. They kind of had it on, but didn't really watch it. And so I didn't play in that game that we lost 1-0 on Galaxy. And then I came home for the second game, and then obviously that didn't go the way we wanted. Maybe I still wasn't in the right mindset. Unfortunately, I can't blame anything on the way that it turned out. I do remember that goal, Juninho's goal, devastating goal after, we ended up scoring 2 and thinking, okay, we're back in it. We're winning, and then that devastating goal kind of deflating everything and just ruining our treble. And I mean, I've talked to some of the guys I played with, Solo Sarvez and Sean Franklin when I was at DC later on, and it still stung. I still didn't give it up.
As much as you weren't a part of maybe an MLS Cup success, you still won a lot of trophies. You won 3 US Open Cups and a Supporter Shield. And in your opinion, I mean, it doesn't have to be due to significance or anything, but for you, from those 4 trophies that you won, which one of those 4 from which year was the most special one for you that meant the most to you?
Oh, it's got to be the Supporter Shield. I mean, to win that, to be the best team over the entire season, with how many games that is. Like, I played a role in the Open Cup wins as well, but to play such a significant role on the team throughout the year, and then to win that, that means the most, for sure.
So throughout your career, I mean, I think you were part of the prime part of my childhood when I was growing up. I got to see you play out wide, and sometimes you played up top. Had a great, in my opinion, I think you had a great duo with Obafemi Martins when I saw you play up top with him. And it kind of reminds me a lot of right now with Jordan Morris. He's a guy who started off as a striker with this team when he came in 2016, and has been moved to the left, sometimes plays on the right, and then recently he's had a resurgence at the striker position. It's kind of created this whole debate. Like, what is Jordan Morris's best position? And as someone that, you know, you've played with Jordan, you kind of have that similar arc where you both are kind of not being shoehorned, but almost like when the opportunity is needed, you guys are played on the left or played at striker, just like depending on who's on the field. And in your opinion, as someone that's played with him, as someone that has kind of had that similar role, who has flip-flopped in those spots, where do you think best suits Jordan in your opinion?
It's a bit of a complicated question, right? Because we've seen the success and the efficiency he's had when he's been up front this year. It is unfortunate you don't get more opportunities like that, especially when you are scoring a bunch. Like, you know, I remember scoring a few goals and then the next game getting switched positions and you're like, what is going on? And the same has happened to him, but it's a compliment as well, where, you know, you can start in both positions if somebody's out. But when you have forwards like the Sounders have, when you have a Ruidíaz, like, who else is going to be playing regardless if you score 5 goals up top? This guy has been a deadly finisher for the last how many years, and one of the best strikers in the league. So you got to kind of take your hat off and be like, through an entire run, he's proven that he's been able to score goals, and Jordan's been efficient out wide as well. So that was the same thing for me, right? Like I mostly played outside in the supporting role. I got to play up top for a stint and was really efficient up there. But then we had like Eddie Johnson coming back or Clint coming back that could play up top too. And so I had to go back out wide. So where is he the best for this team? Probably out wide. But I think the joy that comes from outside midfielder to be able to play up top and not have to run back and forth, when that happens, it's almost a spark of like, I get to play in a new spot and you're more energetic and more excited. So it might be good that he just transitions up top every now and then and gives that spark and that shows something different than like a Ruidíaz or a Montero or whoever. Who knows where he's the best at? I just know we're the best when he's on the field.
Something I do want to ask you, since we're a little ahead of schedule, I do want to ask you a little bit about Ballard FC, because you have been the poster boy of this new semi-pro team that has just kind of hit the ground running, similar to the Sounders. I think they've been a smash hit. I've had many of my friends talk about playing for this team and all that. And I just want you to talk about how did this pathway open up for you, and why did you make this decision to be a part of that organization, and why are you so passionate about it? Why is this so important to you?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you bringing up Ballard, a big part of my life right now. It really came out of, I was playing for the Tacoma Stars, and one of the other players, Sam Suzette, me and him just always kind of connected and would talk in the locker room and ended up sitting next to each other. And about 6 months after I was done playing, he gave me a call with an idea for super hyper local kind of PDL style team based out of Ballard, where he's from. And the hyper local obviously lends itself to Ballard. Like if you're thinking of a community that is has so much pride and almost a borough of Seattle, if something like that was going to be successful, Ballard was a place that it definitely could. And so when he said that, it honestly reminded me that when I was in college, I would end up spending my summers in Des Moines, Iowa, because Seattle didn't really have a team of Des Moines Menace caliber. And so I would love to have come home and been on a team in the Seattle area and play in front of my home crowd and be able to stay at home. And so this was a great way for me to be in soccer without coaching, without, having too much hands-on, but a place where I could create a space for players who want to develop to the next level. So that was the idea, was to create a team that was built after almost a semi-pro team that could develop the area, the talent that we have in this area. So in our conference, there was only 4 teams in Oregon. That was the entire conference. There was no teams in Washington. And so we jumped into the space. Ollietown ended up jumping into the space as well. And we were able to retain talent in the Seattle area and in Washington that would normally be going anywhere in the country to play on these teams. And so that's how we were able to have so much success on the field. Also with getting the coaches that we got, Jason Farrell, Amadou, San Yang. But yeah, and then off the field, Ballard absolutely held on to it. Like I was saying before, the community wrapped their arms around it. We made it completely community based. Sam ended up becoming the GM full time, knocked it out of the park. Our branding, the sponsors, everybody that was involved, we started to create it. And every single time we brought the idea to somebody or asked for something, they said, nobody ended up being like, you guys are crazy, that's not going to work. Everybody was like, yes, this is a great idea. How can we make it even bigger? And so that's how it eventually just ended up being the top league. We thought it might be something that we would build over the years. And then every single time we brought it to somebody, they were like, no, go bigger. This is a great idea. And so we ended up doing it. And we're moving into our second year right now and about to start up. They're already training. First game is the end of May. And hopefully we can build off last year. We ended up getting like 8th in the nation out of like 140, 150 teams. So hopefully we can build off that and do better and keep bringing talent to Washington and keep the talent here.